Dissecting the Los Angeles Lakers 2020 NBA team from league history. The Los Angeles Lakers have officially locked up the first seed, and yes, it was in the Western Conference, which no doubt LeBron James is very proud of, and to his credit, it was one of the big questions throughout his time in the Eastern Conference. Could he really do it in the West? The Lakers really do have a strong chance this year to make it to the NBA Finals since 2010, when the Lakers were led by their star player in Kobe Bryant and a 20-10 big man in Pau Gasol, with some great defensive role players that all played their roles exactly the way they were meant to play in order for the Lakers to win that NBA championship. That 2010 Lakers roster does have some similarities to this year's Lakers roster. Although this year's Lakers roster hasn't made the NBA Finals together before, unlike the 2010 Lakers who made the finals in 2008, 2009, and then of course made it again in 2010. So many questions need to be answered, yet this is still a very fascinating team with so much history. So let's break it down. Let's look at this Lakers squad and how they all came to be assembled as the first Los Angeles Lakers team to make the NBA playoffs in a decade. These players though have a history to them, so mostly veteran players. For example, Kyle Kuzma won't be in this video as he's relatively new to the league and doesn't really have a history. But before I get started, I'd really appreciate if you guys could leave a like to show your support on the video. It literally means so much if you could hit that like button. It takes 2 seconds of your time and it helps the channel out a lot. If we could aim for 1,000 likes for the next video, that would be awesome. And if you're new around here, be sure to hit that subscribe button for NBA content every single week. And without further ado, don't forget to hit that notification button and let's get into the video. So the Los Angeles Lakers have run many combinations of starting lineups this year, and I won't go through every player, but we'll start with two guards, Rajon Rondo and Avery Bradley, two former Boston Celtics and once rivals of the LA Lakers. Firstly, Rajon Rondo. To think that Rondo is on his 6th NBA team is just insane to me. Sure, he's a veteran guard, but 6 teams in 8 years after leaving Boston is just insane and shows how fast time flies. A year in Dallas, Sacramento, Chicago, New Orleans with Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins, 2 teammates this year, and now the Los Angeles Lakers. If you rewind back to 2010, no way could you have imagined Rondo playing with LeBron James in a Lakers jersey. That just seemed absurd, but it's the NBA and anything is truly possible. I don't think anyone could have believed that he'd play for the Chicago Bulls with Dwayne Wade after their battles in the Eastern Conference, Miami vs Celtics, and they became good teammates. He currently is injured, but Rondo is still a valuable piece for this Lakers team, even if he isn't the same player that he once was. All the Lakers need from him is some veteran minutes as a past player that has multiple time defensive first team player awards and a multiple time all-star, a past NBA champion, and a veteran like Rondo that can come into the playoffs could prove very valuable. Rondo's history throughout his time in the NBA is one that is very marvelous. In the 2010s, he was seen as one of the greatest point guards, the way that Steph, Kyrie, Dame, Trae Young all are today. Back then it was Rajon Rondo, Chris Paul, Steve Nash, Deron Williams. But a decade has gone by, new point guards have emerged, and now Rondo is a veteran player on a potential championship team, where he has the chance to win one in Boston and one in Los Angeles. What a story. Speaking of stories, a similar one can be said for Avery Bradley. He's been much more of a part of this Lakers team as Rondo has, and he's still a very good defender, and obviously he's shown his presence for this Lakers team, being in the most common Lakers starting lineup. But he's opted out of the bubble, which means his value for this team has to be replaced, so it looks like that it will be Dion Waiters. Not in the starting lineup, but it looks like he'll move into that second rotation, and Caldwell Pope moves into the starting rotation, or Kyle Kuzma, depending on what the Lakers decide to run, and obviously the playoff matchups can be adjusted. Nevertheless, this is about dissecting the current roster, so let's keep it moving. Dion Waiters, a super interesting player, drafted to the Cleveland Cavaliers 4th overall in 2012. A few years later, LeBron James had returned to Cleveland, and Dion didn't have a role alongside Kyrie, LeBron, and Kevin Love. He had a year in OKC with Russ and KD, and of course Serge Ibaka, but he really didn't fit. A 4-year stretch in Miami where he played the best basketball of his career saw him prove very valuable for that Heat team. Until this year, where he stopped having that Miami Heat mentality, that hard-working, grit and grind mentality, and he found himself out of the rotation, which spiraled him being traded to Memphis, and then waived by Memphis and finding his way to LA. And what's crazy is the man that officially took Dion Waiters' starting role in 2014 with the Cleveland Cavaliers in J.R. Smith now plays alongside Dion Waiters, and we know his story. The Denver Nuggets, the New York Knicks, one of the greatest six men in NBA history. Then he played in Cleveland, won an NBA championship as a huge role player and a clutch shooter. Now he's part of an LA Lakers team with a similar role, but only if needed. J.R. Smith is the type of player that can light up the floor at any moment, and he can win a playoff game off of his own hot hand. Shooters never forget how to shoot. Just ask Ray Allen.
Back up top, Smith from way outside. Bang!
Another shooting guard with rich history is Danny Green. Last season, Danny Green made it to the NBA Finals and won an NBA championship with Toronto. In 2014, he won a ring with the San Antonio Spurs and defeated LeBron James, the man that he was once teammates with in 2009 when he first entered the league as the 46th overall pick of the 2009 NBA draft. LeBron and Danny Green's history goes way back from 2009 as teammates to rivals in San Antonio and then back to being teammates this season. But Danny Green's history is far better than what people give him credit for. After he played 20 games in his rookie year with the Cleveland Cavaliers, the team actually waived Danny Green at the beginning of the next season. He was then picked up by the San Antonio Spurs in 2010, and then he was waived 6 days later. He played in the D-League, signed again by the San Antonio Spurs in 2011, and then he went back down to the D-League. Then he signed a one-year contract with KK Olympia, which included an NBA out clause option when he entered the 2011 NBA lockout. Then he returned to the San Antonio Spurs after the lockout ended, and the rest is history. He won a championship with the Spurs, he finished 9th in the league in voting for the NBA Most Improved Player award, and by 2018, he was traded for DeMar DeRozan alongside his teammate Kawhi Leonard and won an NBA championship in Toronto. So for him to be the 46th overall pick, to being waived, to being picked up again, to being waived to the D-League, to being picked up again, waived again, and to still make his name as one of the better 3-and-D guys in the league, just shows how valuable he truly is for this Lakers team if he can perform, and it's going to be fun to watch him in the playoffs. Obviously at small forward, we know who he is, the king, LeBron James. We really don't need to get into it too much, but apart from the fact that he's competing for his first NBA championship in a Lakers jersey, he's a 3-time NBA champion already with Miami and Cleveland. If he wins this year, he'll be only the third player in league history to win a championship at 3 different teams. He's still in discussion for the MVP at age 35, and we know that a player for LeBron James will be fun to watch and very scary for opposition players. We don't need to get into the history of LeBron James. I think we all very well know what it is. At power forward, Anthony Davis. Whilst only 26 years old, Anthony Davis has an enormous amount of history with him. He was drafted 8 years ago in 2012 to the New Orleans Hornets, and it seems like yesterday he was the first overall pick, but he actually played with LeBron James even before being a part of the New Orleans Hornets. As we all know, he would go on to be the greatest power forward in the game for many years before being a part of the Lakers season, but it was his time in the Olympics that got him started with NBA basketball. He played alongside great teammates in the 2012 Olympics, and LeBron James was one of those teammates. But this year, it's his first real chance at a championship, and the duo of LeBron James and Anthony Davis will be incredible to watch in these playoffs, and potentially in Davis's first Western Conference Finals, and potentially NBA Finals appearances. And at power forward off the bench, another veteran player in Markieff Morris. Whilst it can be stated that the Clippers got the better Morris, Markieff has still been a serviceable player for many years throughout his time in the NBA. A 13th overall pick in 2011, Morris has been a part of the Phoenix Suns, Washington Wizards, Oklahoma City Thunder, Detroit Pistons, and now a part of the Los Angeles Lakers. And whilst he's never been a top 3 option, he's always been a serviceable 4th or 5th option for a team. A 10-point and 6-rebound player with some solid defense, he's a good guy to have on your team. He shows heart, aggression, and it's always nice having a player that does that. He's a good leader for the Lakers, who probably won't need him or use him, but provides the Lakers with options if Davis, LeBron, or Kuzma gets injured, tired, or in foul trouble. And lastly, there are 2 centers, and this is what I'm excited to talk about. Number 1, the first center, JaVale McGee. A player on his 6th NBA team, and someone who really turned his career around, from being a Shaqtin' a Fool joking sort of uncoordinated big man to a player who plays a huge role on a Lakers team defensively and was also part of the pivotal championships in Golden State. He seemingly turned out to be a player who plays his role for a team and plays it very well. Enter the paint and you will be sent back. And offensively, he provides solid screens, putback, and second chance opportunities, exactly what you want out of a 7-footer, alongside Davis, LeBron, Kuzma, and Danny Green. And of course, Dwight Howard, probably the most important player outside of LeBron James and Anthony Davis for this Los Angeles Lakers team. A man with so much history. Like Rondo, Dwight Howard was a huge part of the NBA in the 2010s, an incredible MVP candidate, an NBA Finals player who defeated LeBron James in the Eastern Conference Finals and then had to match up against the Black Mamba himself to lose in the 2009 NBA Finals. Dwight Howard's resume speaks for itself. An 8-time All-Star, a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. Yet, just like Carmelo Anthony, another superstar of the 2010s, he struggled to find a home. He was washed, they said. A cancer in the locker room, they said. He didn't care enough, and surely he won't return to LA after a disaster in 2013 with Kobe Bryant, Steve Nash, and Pau Gasol, but yet he did, and he defied all the odds that were stacked against him. He became a fan favorite, and someone who's become a bright spot for this Lakers team, and a Hall of Famer that has put his ego aside to win a first NBA championship. Let's forget about the Hawks, Hornets, Wizards, and even his time in 2012 with the Lakers. And let's forget about the time he was waived by Memphis. What he's been able to do this year alone in LA to turn his career around is just extraordinary. So could you imagine at the start of the year saying J.R. Smith, Dion Waiters, Dwight Howard, and Markieff Morris, all players who were at some point this year waived, all have the potential to win an NBA championship and actually play some level of a role? Like, Dwight Howard absolutely turned his career around, and Lakers fans' hatred towards him has switched. JaVale McGee turned from a Shaqtin' a fool to a strong defensive center that teams don't want to enter the paint freely, with Davis in there as well. J.R. Smith has a chance for revenge after his mishap in the 2018 NBA Finals. Dion Waiters, Mr. Gummy himself, has a chance to play a role for this Lakers team with Avery Bradley and potentially Rondo out. Like, what a story it would be. And I haven't even gone into the big stars yet. Anthony Davis, what a kickstart to his run for one of the most dominant big men in league history. And he can have all the stats in the world, but if he doesn't win a ring, it doesn't mean a thing. Just ask Kevin Garnett. And the King, going for his 4th NBA ring, in a year where many LA fans have their hearts destroyed, losing their best and one of their Lakers' own, Kobe Bryant, to the heavens above. What a story this year it would be if the Lakers were to win. My point to this video is that I wanted to share why I love this Lakers team. Even as a Miami Heat fan, I think this Lakers team is a story in itself. Shout out to the management, and it truly does remind me of the Heat of 2006, with a ton of veteran guys. Like Alonzo Mourning I can see as a comparable player to Dwight Howard. I can see Rondo as a comparable player to Jason Williams. There's a 1-2 punch in Shaq and Wade, similar to LeBron James and Anthony Davis. And then you have a whole bunch of misfits that have a role on their teams. And they've all somehow brought it all together and won a ring with their egos aside. And the Lakers have a potential to do that, just like the Miami Heat did in 06. So that's why I love this Lakers squad. And while I want them to succeed once again, I'm not even a Lakers fan. With that said, if you enjoyed the video, please let me know in the comment section. Subscribe for more videos just like this one. And let me know if you want to see one by the LA Clippers, because their history is also pretty fascinating. I'd really appreciate if you guys could aim for 1,000 likes for this video. It would help me out so much, and it takes 1 second of your time. If you enjoy the video, be sure to check out some of my other videos, and I'll catch you in my next one. I am out. Peace.